All right, and from that musical break given to us by the one, the only Unique, the DJ, we now get into our next interview, and we will be talking about storytelling. I'm sure we love stories. I don't think there's anyone who does not love stories. I mean, it's our day-to-day. Stories za jaba, story gari. Bora tu story, tunapiga story. Well, I am joined by Dr. Michael, who is a storyteller and a medical doctor as well. Dr. Michael, Maina, welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you very much.
How are you feeling this morning? It's a bit great. Chilly.
Yeah, but not too bad.
Were you caught up by the rain while coming?
No, I came in early.
Okay. So all right. You are actually a medical doctor by profession?
I am. So it's something that I liked when I was finishing high school. So I studied medicine at the University of Nairobi. I did 6 years. I did my internship at Garissa. Currently, I work in Kenyatta National Hospital, the Accident and Emergency Department.
All right. I have not seen many sciences people having a creative side. So, I mean, you're a storyteller, so it means you also have, you know, that creative side in you. Did that come easily, or when did that come for you?
Well, personally, I think you have to diversify as much as you can. Try to do as many things that express yourself. I am passionate about medicine, but there are also other things I do. I love storytelling because you always do it. Whether you are in an interview, talking to your friends, on a date. So it's something I enjoy doing. Plus also the economy stuff, so you have to do one or two things here and there.
Yeah. When we talk about storytelling, what does it exactly mean?
Storytelling is basically just portraying a bit of your life to someone else as honestly as you can, and maybe at times, as you said, ribaza jaba, no, for entertainment also.
Yeah. I believe storytelling has its power. According to you as Michael, what is the power in storytelling?
For me, the thing I find the most fascinating about storytelling, you can express your life to someone else, and you can also get the view back, as opposed to just telling someone something or maybe giving some numbers or statistics. Storytelling, it gives a face to the problem. It makes one empathize with you, and you also get a new perspective of life. I think you connect lives by storytelling.
Yeah. How does one become a storyteller? Because you are a storyteller. How does one become a storyteller? Is everyone a storyteller? How does one become a storyteller?
I believe everyone is a storyteller because in our day-to-day interactions, at the office, with friends, everywhere, you share stories, you talk about your day, interesting events. I believe it's in everybody, but the way the moth does it, for example, I joined in around 2019. There was a workshop that took place virtually. It was during COVID time. So it was really nice. They showed us how you can structure a story to make it more systematic, how to tell it, some skills that you can use. And basically I just went on with that, and here we are.
Yeah. Can we use storytelling to change some behavioral things? Can we use it to change the community? And how maybe are you doing that?
For me, the biggest impact I found storytelling was when I was in university. I was the country coordinator for the International Youth Alliance for Family Planning, and we did a lot of advocacy work. And when you go to stakeholders' office and you try to get them to change a policy or to do something, you give figures and maybe they can't see the face. It just sounds a bit cliche.
Yeah.
But when you give a story, you can personalize it and they can actually relate. For example, we were doing things about teenage pregnancies and HIV and AIDS among young people. If you have a daughter and you hear about someone else, you can empathize, and it really helps in advocacy, for example, in my work. And also as a doctor, when you get in with a patient, the most important thing is history taking. That's basically listening to the story of the patient. They tell you about how the condition started, and by getting that information, you can come to a diagnosis, and that's actually the most critical part, as opposed to labs and maybe imaging.
I want us to get into the moth now. Tell us what the moth is all about for someone who's hearing about it for the very first time.
So the moth is a wonderful organization. It started in 1997. There was a gentleman called George Green. He was from Georgia, and he had gone to New York. And he missed how he'd stay like late at night with his friends, with the lights there and the moths buzzing close, telling each other stories, you know. And so he decided to bring it to New York. He actually started in his living room. He invited people over, and everybody just shared their stories. And it caught on. And then in 2014, there's the Global Community Program. So they branched out of the US, got into Africa, other places in the world. And basically, they've been continuing, developing stories and shaping storytellers up to this date. Yes.
You normally have an annual event for the moth. There's one that is happening, this year's event is happening on Saturday on the 4th. Tell us about that particular event. What happens in this event?
So it's a lovely event. I'd actually encourage everyone to attend. It's on Saturday at Catholic University from 8 p.m. But the doors are open at 6:15. Cocktails can be had. So it's a series of storytellers who will come one after the other. You tell a personal story about your life, something that pertains to you personally. And it's around 10 to 15 minutes each story from diverse groups of people, everybody and everyone. So it's really entertaining, can give you a new perspective of life, maybe see new things differently, and also just have a nice time.
Yeah, it's happening on Saturday at the Catholic University. Is it free? Is there an entrance fee?
There's an entrance fee. If you book earlier, it's 1,500. For students, it's 1,000. But at the gate, it's 2,000. So I encourage everyone to book earlier. You can get your tickets at Kenya Buzz.
Okay. You're one of the storytellers who will be there. Can you maybe tell us about what you will be talking about just a bit without, giving away too much?
If you're curious, I'd ask you to buy a ticket. But it's my second time. Maybe I can tell you about my first story.
Okay.
So my first story was about the first time I fell in love. So in high school, it was a boarding school, and in a boys' school, you wake up, you see a boy, you go to bed, you see a boy, like, and then we had this event.
Yeah.
So it was like a sporting event. Then I saw this girl. She looked like an angel from heaven. Yeah. So at this time, you're confused. You don't know anything about girls. Your friends who are also single, like you, give you like dating advice that doesn't make sense. And basically, I was confused. But our physics teacher actually gave us some advice. And one thing I like about that story, at the time I was going through a heartbreak. Yeah.
Okay.
So I remember it was really bad. I was shown things like
character development.
By the way, I'm still waiting to be called for graduation because I went through a full course with honors.
Uliyepigwa character kwanzia high school, bro. It's been
no, when I was telling the story.
Okay,
that time.
okay.
Yeah. So at the time I was in I was pessimistic, bitter. But when telling the story, I was a bit introspective, and I kind of learned how to love again. Get the optimism. So that's one thing that I also like about stories. Yeah, they teach you about yourself, and you reflect about it, and they better you as a person.
Yeah. How does it feel being, in the presence of an audience telling your story? Everyone is silent. They're just listening to you tell your story. How is that for you when you're on that stage?
I think for the first time, it was a bit frightening. The problem wasn't the audience. The problem was the lights. I wasn't used to it.
I hope these ones are not messing with you.
It's good.
Okay.
But whenever you tell your stories, you tell them in front of someone. So I just have this perspective. These are people who are here to listen to something I have to say. And after a while, you just enjoy yourself and you narrate your story as it is.
Is that something you do before getting on stage to tell your story?
Because we usually do some rehearsals. And maybe to deal with the nerves, a deep breath here and there. It's good.
Would you say that as a country, we are embracing storytelling as a thing?
I believe so. For example, in your line of work, you basically tell stories to the Republic, and it helps people get a closer perspective. For example, when you hear there's a crisis somewhere in the country, and then you see that person themselves being in that situation, say, asking for help, it makes you a bit more empathetic. Also, Kenyans have very nice stories. I really enjoy hanging out with my friends. They tell me stories. I laugh for 3 days, even when I'm alone. Kenyans really embrace storytelling, and I'd encourage as many young people as possible, actually people of all ages, to share their stories and also get involved in the moth.
Yeah. So when it comes to the moth, when you have such an event like the one that will be happening on Saturday, are you given themes on what to talk about? Is it a freestyle kind of thing where you all of you as storytellers are just told you'll come give us a story? Is there, what's the guidance when you're being chosen, first of all, to come tell the story? Are you given a theme? How do they go about that?
Yeah, there's a theme for along all the storytellers, and the story is aligned towards a theme. So it's like really nice, and you can get different perspectives about it. Yeah, so from different storytellers. Yeah.
So maybe what's the theme for this year?
This year, basically, it's around maybe hope, optimism going forth. Things are a bit difficult, for example, in the country, and you have to like move forward in your life and try to make the best out of everything. Yeah.
And you just say that, and I feel like storytelling can really get someone out of, when they're in the pit mentally. Would you say so? Like, would you say storytelling is part of mental health advocacy, or can be used rather in mental health advocacy? It can work better while using storytelling to advocate for mental wellness.
Exactly. For example, in the traditional African societies, there wasn't psychiatrists or psychologists, but the community will be able to enable the mental health by sharing stories. People will meet every time around the fire, every day. You share your stories, what you've gone through, and the whole community is invested in you. And I think that's something we should also embrace. Opening up about your issues. It's been sad. We've seen the rise in suicide rates, and people rarely share as they think people won't empathize. But I'd like to encourage everyone just to share with whomever. It could be your family, your friends, professional help when needed. It's always good to share. It helps with both advocacy and personal mental health. Yes.
Are there challenges when it comes to storytelling?
There are challenges.
Yeah.
For example, the stories that we do are personal stories. So, for example, it can be a situation that you still haven't processed fully, or that you're still healing from. That can be sort of an issue. And also, at times when you're telling stories, people ask you questions. For example, my first story, after I told the story about how I fell in love and met this girl, people after the story were coming and asking, are you guys still together? And I was like, no, she's married to someone else and has children. Yeah, so it was a bit weird. But it's always nice to share stories. Despite the barriers, I think it's you get more pros than cons.
Yeah. And since in or at the moth, you tell your own personal stories, don't you feel like sometimes it infringes on your privacy? Because, okay, it's up to you to tell the story, so you choose what to say and what not to say. But does it get to a point where you feel like, am I telling too much? Because I know there are some times when we are just seated with my girls and we are beating stories here and there, and there are things I say and I'm like, did I really need to say that? I'm giving out too much. Do you ever get to a point where you feel like, maybe I gave out a lot?
So the thing is, you share what you're comfortable with. Vulnerability is a very important thing. For example, it's something that I've had to learn, being open, in touch with my emotions. It's difficult learning, but telling stories, it's actually very relieving, because you might have some issues here and there, but once you say it, it gets off your chest, you feel fresh, you feel relieved, and you also feel a bit brave, because it's not very easy opening yourself to others, especially in an audience and a crowd.
Yeah, so there's no time you've regretted telling a particular story and you just feel like, this one I'd better just kept it to myself.
No. Maybe once or twice with friends, but not like with the moth.
All right. Okay, cool. Maybe a parting shot as we wind up with the interview.
Everyone, the moth event, it's on Saturday, 8 p.m., but the doors open 6:15. It's at Catholic University at the auditorium. Get your tickets at Kenya Buzz. For students, it's 1,000. Online, it's 1,500. At the gate, it's 2,000. See you there.
All right. You know that we as Kenyans love stories. Now, as I said, stories ajaba is something that we all have had. And yeah, if you want to just go sit down and get to hear of people's stories and get to just listen to people tell us of their personal stories, which is always really, really refreshing to just sit and listen to someone tell you a story. You know where to go. The event is happening on Saturday at the Catholic University. So grab your tickets and make sure that you head over there on Saturday. Thank you so much for coming to the show, and all the best on your storytelling on Saturday.
Thanks.
All right, we take a very short break. Don't you go too far. We'll be back.